Hiya, so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to make a template website from a planned template, basically. And we're going to make a template website that we can then update a bunch of different pages using one template and make a bunch of different pages using one basic design. So what I've done is I've set up my folder, which is just in this web design folder. It's called assignment 2. And in there is a resources file which has my wireframe. Now the wireframe is our first step where we've done our design. In here what I've done is I've designed a page for my template. Now everything here is the stuff, everything is in green, is the stuff that I'm going to want on every single one of my pages that I have designed. I've got all the numbers set up, I'm all ready to go, I know what I want it to look like in terms of layout. I've also set up a page 1 here, which has got the orange here showing the bits that I'm going to want to be different on each page. So this is, say, my home page, and it's going to have 2 columns, and in each column is going to be like maybe an image and then some text. On my page 2, however, I want a 3-column layout. So what I want to make sure I'm doing here is setting up a page where all of the areas that are in green stay the same on every one of my web pages. So every part of my site has the same basic layout with this header, this navigation bar, this main section, and this footer. And the only things that are going to change on each page is the content inside that main section. So to set that up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into Dreamweaver, where I've already set up my site, my main root folder here, to be in the main root folder where my assignment 2 folder is. Now you'll notice that I'm not in the assignment 2 folder itself. That's because I might want to upload my assignment 1 and my assignment 2 folders at the same time to the remote server. If I do indeed want to do that, what I'll need to do is have my templates outside in this main folder. Now templates will be created here automatically in the root folder, so it's important that you know where your root folder is. Let's get started by creating a HTML page. And the first thing we would do when we create a HTML page usually would be to change the title. So we'll do that here. This is going to be my template website, website with an S. So I'm going to call it that in template. If I switch to split view here, we can see now I have my HTML code and I have my design view. Usually the next thing I would do would be to save this file. And I absolutely could save this file, but if I do, what I'm going to need to do is save this as a kind of working file, not as index. This is not my index page. What I am doing here is I am blocking out, making the design for my template. So I could, if I wanted to save this, say, I know, save this into my assignment 2 folder as my design or my template design or something like that. Template design. That will give me a file in here which is called template design, which might not be very useful. So I'm actually going to cancel that and I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to make this without saving. Now usually we would not do it this way, but because we know we're going to make this a template, it's not a problem. What I could do, in fact, let's say that file and then save as template. Now that will save this as a template before I've even got started, but again, it might not be worth doing that until I've done any work. So what I will do here is I will start blocking out my content. So going into the structure tab up here, I'm going to add my div for my wrapper. The wrapper is the thing that contains all of the other structural elements. Inside that wrapper, so clicking inside the wrapper, I want my header. So I'm going to add a header in here. And then I'm going to want my navigation. Now my navigation wants to come underneath my header, so I've got 2 options. I can either come and click in the code after the close header tag, just here. And I can add my navigation that way. And I'm going to call this navigation. Or I would sometimes just call that nav to be quick. Or the other option, so now I need my main section. I could click in here. I don't want my main section in my navigation though, I want it outside it. If you don't want to do it in the code, you can still do this. And add my section here. I'm going to call it main section. And where it says insert, rather than inserting it at insertion point, I want it after the tag of navigation. So it comes in after my navigation tag before the div. Click OK. Now that will add that before the div but after the navigation tag. Superb. That works very, very well. I'm going to do it in the code because I prefer the code. I find it slightly easier that way. So now I just need my footer. So clicking after the section, adding footer. There we go. One footer. That gives me all the things I need. Now what I want to do is set up this page to look the way it is in my design. So I come to design view and start changing my CSS. Before I do that though, what I wanted to explain to you this time is we are going to use an external style sheet. Rather than, when I click on the add source here, rather than going to define in page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new CSS file. That new CSS file will need to be in my folder somewhere, so it's going to go in my assignment 2 folder, and I'm going to give it a sensible name like assignment 2 CSS. I guess that will work, won't it? So template 2 main CSS might be better. Let's call it template 2 main CSS. Save that. It's going to give me a warning here telling me that, are you sure you want to save this file, because it's attached to something that isn't saved to anything else. So what I mean by that is my document that I am going to make into a template isn't yet saved, so the CSS file isn't attached to anything that it knows the location of. That's okay. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click OK again. And now I have a CSS document separate to my source code. So my source code here is all my HTML, which now has a link to that. And then the CSS itself is going to go in here. Currently there's nothing in there. I haven't done anything. Go back to my source code here. Nothing else is going to go in here. Back to design view just so I can see what I'm doing. Click on my main assignment 2 CSS document. Add a selector, and I'll start with the wrapper, #wrapper. That gives me my options for my wrapper. Now all I need to do here for my wrapper is set this to the width I need my whole page to be, and if we look at my Photoshop document, you can see that actually all of my boxes need to be 1000 pixels wide. So I'm going to make the wrapper 1000 pixels wide, and that will restrain each one of these boxes, my header, my navigation, my main section, and my footer to be 1000 pixels wide without me having to set it up for each one individually. So back to my Dreamweaver file, width, pixels, 1000, superb. Now you can see up here that now my boxes end over here, they are 1000 pixels wide, but they're stuck right to the left. I'd actually rather have my web page be nice and central in the browser window, no matter what browser it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down in this wrapper tag again and click margin. So you see the margin here. What I want to do is I want to add a margin on the left of auto. Now that does the opposite. It shoves everything all the way to the right, because what is happening here is the Dreamweaver, the code, the CSS is adding automatically as many pixels as it can on the left hand side, which is what I've told it to do. The left hand margin is now automatically as many pixels as it can be. But if I do the same on the right, however, it puts an even number either side of this wrapper. So if I were to drag this page, you can see that my content always stays in the middle of the page no matter what size it is. So that'll do. That looks good. Now I'm going to add a color to my wrapper just so we can see it. We can see that everything is inside it. So adding a background color here, I'll just make this a kind of light blue color. There you go. Everything in my wrapper now nice and light blue. And that's everything I'll need to do with my wrapper. The wrapper is mainly there just to set up the borders on the outside and everything in the center, and make sure all of your content is held in one place within a certain width. I could set the height as well, but there's not really much need because the wrapper will increase in height as I make everything bigger inside it. So I'm just going to highlight this text, delete it, wrapper is done. Next part is my header. So I'm going to do the same stuff with my header, and navigation and all the rest of it. So the header here, add a selector, hash, header, select it from my list, make the height of this, whatever it was in my document, which I believe is 170 high there. Come back over here, set the height up to 170 pixels high. That's my header. Just for clarity, I'm going to change the color of that as well. Let's make that a red color. Let's make it a bit darker. One red header. Next thing down is my navigation. So hash n, and there's my navigation. Tap that. And again, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to come up and I'm going to change the height of this to pixels. And this one is set to 50 pixels high and 1000 pixels wide. The width is already done. I don't need to worry about that. And I'll leave my navigation in the blue color just for now. Actually, no, we will change it just because it's going to make it easier to see for you guys. So let's change that to, or I don't know, let's make it a purple color. Just a kind of light purple color there will do. Great. Not a particularly good color. Maybe we should make it lighter still. There we go. That'll do. It looks a little nicer. And then the main section, don't need to do anything to the main section. That's going to be controlled by all the content when I put the content in. So I'll do the footer, clicking in the footer, adding a selector for my footer, hash, footer. There we go. Didn't really type all that in, but I did anyway. And the height of that is 60 pixels. And we will change the color of that one to be, let's say, green, because I usually do green for my footers for no reason other than because I can. There you go. So header is set up at its height, navigation is set up at its height, footer is set up at its height. Now what I would do at this stage is probably fill in the content of each of these boxes. If I look at my Photoshop document again, I have set up some content that I would put in the header and then my links. Now I haven't actually sectioned those out or made those appropriate, exported them from Photoshop, so I'm not going to bother putting those in. I will just put in some placeholder text though, just for our benefit. So bringing back that, back to Dreamweaver, I'm just going to change my header here. I'm going to make that a format of heading 1, just to make it nice big text. And in my navigation, I'm just going to type in link 1, link 2, link 3, link 4, link 5, and that'll do. Okay, footer, maybe put a name in there, or just put copyright. Just write the word copyright. I could just copyright James, that'll do. And there you go. That is now my template set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that as a template. And then in the next video, I'll show you how to actually use that template. So to save it as a template, I go to File, Save as Template, give it a sensible name, such as, I don't know, Assignment to Template, or maybe Assignment to Main Template, because we're using that main word in there as well. Make sure it's in the site for root folder. I don't know why mine isn't defaulting to that. It should be. So root folder site, click save. You can see over here in my files that now adds a template which has got this in it as well.